Hi, I'm Mikaela, and this is Love Mikaela, a podcast where I talk about literally anything and everything I want to. Today's episode is going to probably be pretty short. It's going to be rambly. It's going to be kind of stream of consciousness. So if you don't like that, I apologize, but it is what it is. That's what we're going to be doing today. Today, I wanted to talk about grief and loss. I have been thinking about death a lot lately. Um, Recently, someone really important to me passed away, and it hit me in a way that I wasn't really expecting, and I didn't think that it would. It was someone who I didn't really think that they would ever be gone, I guess. And it was just interesting. Like, the way I came across it wasn't even like someone didn't tell me. I saw it like through social media basically, so that was like a weird way to find out, I think. And it was someone who like I don't know if you've ever met people like this, but there's certain people that like in my head I'm like, "Oh, like they'll be around forever. They'll be around before like they'll be around until I'm gone." And that's not the case. Especially for people who are older. Um and it just made me really think a lot and about grief and loss and death and mourning. And I think the biggest feeling for me personally that came up was guilt, which I thought was really interesting. Um, I One of my like biggest sources of guilt with this was feeling like I didn't deserve to feel upset or as upset as I did about it happening because I felt like I didn't know him as well as other people did. And to me, I was like, so do I deserve to feel this upset when other people who were closer to him maybe don't feel like, should this amount of pain be reserved for the people who are closer to him? Which makes no sense at all, right? Like, how you feel is how you feel, and you don't really have control over that in any situation, let alone something like this. But for me, I was just like, I don't even know if I deserve to be this upset. Like, I didn't know him as well as some of these other people do. Like, the people the people that I was reaching out to were people who knew him a little bit better or interacted with him more. Whether they knew him better or not, I don't know, but they interacted with him more, they spent more time with him. And I was going to them almost for comfort, but more for a sense of like, I'm not the only one who feels like this, right? um and then I felt bad because I was like, I should be like, there's one person in particular that I'm thinking of that I reached out to specifically, who I reached out to them, and then they were like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry that this has happened." And I was like, "No, I'm sorry that this happened. You knew him better than I did." I didn't say that, but in my head I was like, "You're not the one. I should be the one reaching out and being like, 'Are you okay? What's going on with you? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can do for you?'" But I also was like hurting and sad and upset and grieving. And it was just really interesting that I was feeling this guilt on top of all of that. And I don't think it's an uncommon thing for people to feel guilt when they're grieving the loss of someone or something. I had guilt around like whether I was allowed to feel the way I was feeling. I had guilt around wishing that like the shoulda woulda couldas, like I wish I had reached out more. Like this was someone that I wanted to reach out to. I'd been thinking about reaching out to them. Essentially, to not get into too much detail, it was an old teacher of mine who had passed, and someone who like felt really important to me, and I guess I just didn't realize it until, unfortunately, until they were gone. It's not like I had zero contact with him since I had graduated. I still reached out from time to time, happy birthdays, holidays, things like that. But I had been thinking recently, like, oh, like I should go and take some classes again. I should reach out and see if he would accept me as one of his students again. I've been thinking about that for like probably over a year now. A year and a half, I feel like, is probably a good guess for how long I've been thinking about it. And I never did, and now I can't. So guilt around not doing that, guilt around not talking to him more, guilt around not thanking him more, making sure he knew how much I appreciated what he did for me. Um, he was someone who like could hug you and would know exactly what was wrong. And it also felt like he just kind of had all the right answers and like could give you like the best guidance and advice. And I just felt like I'm at a time where like I really wish I could have had like one more of those hugs. Um yeah. So the guilt over that, the guilt over having a good day and then being like, am I allowed to be happy now? Isn't it so funny that I would be feeling guilty that I was so sad and then I'm also feeling guilty about when I'm having a good day and feeling happy? I think it's so weird. I think grief is so weird and so complicated and complex, and there's just a lot going on there. And I don't think I'm the only. I don't think I'm alone or the only one who feels those that way. I just feel like people don't talk about it a ton because it's a hard thing to talk about. But yeah, guilt towards those things. Also, I was feeling guilty towards my other like family members who've passed away. I have two family members who've. Oh, wow. Sorry, I just realized something. I have two family members who have passed away who I was like kind of close to when I was younger, but as I got older, didn't feel as close to them, felt like honestly disconnected and distant from them and uncomfortable around one of them particularly. And so when they passed, it wasn't like someone really really close to me had passed. Like I was still sad, but it wasn't I didn't feel as sad about it as I did about this person who recently passing. And I felt guilt towards my family members who'd passed. I was like, why didn't I feel that way about them as I do about this person? And feeling guilty towards them now. And it's just weird. It's just a weird feeling to have and experience and go through. Um There's also a memorial. Actually, I think that the day that I'm putting this podcast up and this video up is the day that it's probably going to come out the day of the memorial. Is it or is it after? I think this is coming out either the weekend before or the day of the memorial, and a part of me wasn't sure if I was like allowed to go or if I should go for multiple reasons, but one of them being like I didn't feel like I deserved to go, which is really weird. Again, I don't think I'm the only one who would feel this way, but it's like we had another teacher pass a while ago, but they weren't someone that I was particularly close to or someone that I felt really connected to. Like they were a good teacher, they were fine. We had our differences and that's cool. Um was I sad that he passed? Of course. Like I think it's sad when anyone leaves, but this world, the mortal coil, whatever you want to call it. But it wasn't to this extent, and so I didn't go to like a memorial service for that. But this time I was like I wanted to go, but I didn't know if I was like allowed to go. And then I ended up reaching out to the same friend who I normally reach out to for stuff like this when it revolves around school, because they were an old classmate of mine, and I was like, hey, is it weird if I go? Are you gonna go? Are there gonna be people that I know there? Like I just felt weird about it all. I ended up deciding I'm gonna go. I RSVP'd. I donated, so not that donating means I have to go, but I RSVP'd, so and I made a commitment to that and to myself, and so I think it's important that I go. And I think it will hopefully, I don't know if it will, but I think hopefully it will help the grieving process a little bit. Um, yeah, I didn't know if I was allowed to go, but I'm gonna go. It's funny because sometimes the sadness just kind of hits. I think that's how it is for when you lose anyone. Again, this isn't someone that I was completely devastated over them being gone, but it still like hit me very hard in a way that I didn't think it would. So I can't speak for how I would be feeling if like my mom had passed or my sister. Um, someone that I was like really, really close to and spent like a lot of time with. I don't know how I would feel about that, but just for this situation in particular, um, the sadness would come and go and it would like hit really, really hard sometimes. And I didn't really know what to do with it. besides let myself feel it. It was like sadness because he's gone, sadness for myself and for the people who were really close to him and knew him as well or better than I did or spent more time with him or, whatever. And also just for the world. Like, he was just such a beautiful person and like brought so much good and so much empathy and kindness to the world that I think is something that we lack a lot nowadays. And so it's just like unfortunate that he's gone. Yeah. The more that I started to like think about it, the more I would get kind of scared. Um I don't know if I'm someone who's afraid to die necessarily, but I am afraid of the loss that you feel when the people around you die. So, does that count as the fear of death? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not the end all be all on that. But I'm definitely afraid of like losing the people around me, whether that's through death or some other way. Like we just lose contact or something. Like it's scary. You make connections with people. The reason why it is so lovely and so special to make connections with people and friendships and love and to care about people is because you don't know how long you're going to have that for. And that's what makes it so precious and so beautiful, is to have that connection and you don't know how long or short it will be. And so it makes you really think about cherishing the time that you have with the people that you care about and love, and making time for friends and stuff like that, because you don't know how long those connections will last, whether it is through something from your own control that you cut that contact off or whether it's not. Um, but it made me think more about like my fear around it, and that I'm scared to lose the people around me. I don't know what that means, but I've definitely been thinking about it a lot more. I also think it doesn't help that I talked recently in one of my other podcast episodes, like pretty recently, about we were watching a show called May I Help You, which was about someone who was the like one of the people who works at the I don't remember what they're called, but one of the people who works at the funeral home and helps the family like with stuff that they need and setting things up, like the coffin and the flowers and what kind of food do you want, stuff like that. So I'd already kind of been thinking about it a bit recently, and then this happening was like out of the blue, but it was out of the blue, and that like I just never even thought about it happening. But it's not like he was really really young or anything. He was an older guy. I wish we'd had more time, but I don't have control over that. um Thinking about loss and grief in this way made me start to think about loss and grief in other ways. um like the grief that you have, the loss that you feel from losing relationships with people that like I cared about and not having those people in my life anymore, and wondering like what are those people up to? Are they wondering about me? How are they doing? Are they doing well? Like I recently met up with one of the only people I keep in contact with from high school, who like we see each other like maybe every few months, which I'm really grateful for. It's just like both of us are busy with adult life stuff. But I don't really keep in contact with anyone else from our old friend group. And so I get kind of all my news about them from her, because she's the one person who's kind of kept in contact with pretty much everyone from our little group. And it's nice to like hear about that kind of stuff. But then there's also the guilt, there it is again, of me being like, do I deserve to be asking about these people when I know that for some of them it's a two-way street, right? A relationship, any relationship, friendship or romantic or otherwise, is a two-way street. And so while they did things that upset me, I'm also someone who probably did things that upset them, and I also was a part of cutting off contact. And sometimes I was the person who cut off contact because I was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So it's like, do I deserve to get to hear about them? And wondering like, are they thinking about me ever? And I don't think about them a lot. I'm not talking about one specific person. I'm talking about like everyone that I was friends with in high school, just in case anyone out there is listening. Um, but it's not something I think about a lot, but it's definitely something I think about sometimes, enough that it's like, should I be thinking about this? Do I deserve to be thinking about this? Does it matter if I deserve to be thinking about this? It's just interesting. Like that is a form of grief and loss. Like I grieve and I mourn that those friendships I had with those people are gone, and even if I became friends with them again, like I was talking about this with my friend that I met up with that I still keep up with, that like it'd be weird. It'd almost be like reintroducing ourselves and becoming friends again if that was something that all parties involved wanted to do, just because I feel like we're all different. At least I feel like I'm pretty different. Maybe not looks wise, a little bit looks wise, but maybe not fully looks wise, but at least personality wise and like who I am and how secure I feel in myself is all very different. Like I'm a different person than who I was in high school. Well, most people are when they get older. Some people aren't, but then also that means like those people who aren't, we're still different people now. Like we're still different from each other. And so it would be interesting, like reintroducing yourself, like mourning the loss of that friendship, because it's even if we were to become friends again, it would never be the same way that it was then. And then the loss of cutting someone out of your life and then the guilt that comes with that and thinking about them and wondering if you've done the right thing. Like with some of my friendships, I'm like, maybe I should have been better to them, but also it was what I needed at the time, but also like I could have done it in a nicer way. Like maybe I hurt them more than they hurt me, and like that was too selfish. Was it the right thing? Like I'm still thinking about them from time to time. Should I have just stayed friends with them? Stuff like that. Like it's like that, those are all forms of loss too. Not the same way or to the same extent as like losing someone in terms of like never even being able to contact them anymore or see them or even know that, like be comforted by the fact that their presence is here, like on the same planet as you. But like it's still a form of loss and still a form of grief and still something that you might mourn. um yeah. I've just been thinking about loss and guilt and mourning and um things like that. The loss of your innocence or your childhood, like there's the little kid you, and that little kid probably had to let go of some of their dreams in order to get to where you are today. That little kid had to learn things the hard way sometimes when maybe they shouldn't have had to. That little kid probably lost parts of themselves to fit in with society or the people around them, or to make themselves feel safer with the people who are around them in their environment. Um, you know, that's kind of sad that little kid is gone. They're not here anymore. And that's also a sense of loss and a sense of grief and a sense of something you would be mourning. Um, and even like mourning the person that you used to be before maybe something traumatic or something like scary or crazy happened to you. Or even if something good happened to you, like you can still miss the person you were before that. Or also, I think a bigger thing too when something more likely when something traumatic happens is um mourning the loss of who you could have been or who you think you could have been if this hadn't happened to you. That's its own thing that needs to be thought on and processed and gone through with yourself. Like that's something that you get to mourn and think about and you can be sad about too. But also like you can be sad that like even if the person you were before who you are now wasn't someone that you necessarily liked, or someone that you knew like kind of needed to change or needed to grow up or needed to be a little bit different and maybe kinder or smarter about their world or the people around them, or more aware or whatever it is, even if you don't really like who that person was, the fact that they're gone, even if they weren't the best, doesn't mean you're not allowed to be sad that you're not that person anymore, or that you're not allowed to mourn that person and like there's certain parts of that person, certain aspects that you liked that are gone now and that you're not going to get back because you're different. Um I I just feel like you also might wonder like you might miss them and you might wonder if you even did them right by changing and becoming who you are today. For me, I feel like I did do right by myself, but also like that other person is gone. Um I just feel like we experience a lot more loss and grief and mourning in life than we really think about, because it isn't just when someone passes away. It's all these other little moments that happen. And the fact that things change and that we can't get certain things back is what makes things meaningful, which I know is like silly and cheesy and cliche, or maybe even a bit cruel. But I just think it's the truth. I think like if we had everything we wanted all the time, we got to be around everyone we wanted all the time, it wouldn't matter that we got the things we wanted. And so the fact that we don't, and that there are things we don't have control over, is what makes it so special, that when we do have those things that we love and like, and the people that we love and like in our lives. But like I said, I don't think we spend a lot of time learning how to deal with and process those feelings of guilt and grief and mourning and loss. And I don't really think our society is built for it either. And I think that that can cause people to become really cold and bitter or pessimistic, and it can be dangerous. Like some people like me, the biggest thing that they might be dealing with might be guilt, which maybe won't hurt the people around them as much, but it'll certainly hurt themselves. It could hurt the people around them too. And for other people, those feelings that might come to the forefront because they're not used to dealing with the grief of everything might just be rage, and that might be directed to other people or towards themselves. Or for some people, it might be just the sadness and depression and dealing with that. Like, I don't think I don't think we're built to deal with these emotions the way that we could be, because we don't really learn about them a lot. We don't process them as much as we should. We don't take the time to process them as much as we should. We don't have the tools to deal with these emotions like we do with some of our other emotions. And it's complicated and complex, and it's probably different in little ways for everyone, but I feel like it's something we need to kind of acknowledge, and not just in the big ways when we have a big loss, but in the smaller ways too. I think if we don't give ourselves the time and the grace that we need to deal with these feelings for ourselves, it makes it harder for us to want to give that time and grace to other people when they have those feelings. And give them that same courtesy. And I think that would make the world a harder and scarier place to be in. I think that if we took more time to let ourselves process loss and grief in general, and not just during really big moments, that it would be easier to care about the other people around us. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Again, this is just me kind of rambling about how I've been feeling within the last few weeks. But it's just, I've been thinking about it a lot. Grief and loss and mourning and the guilt that that brings up for me. And what does that say about me and how I view things and myself and the world. I think it's just interesting. And I think it's something that we don't spend a lot of time thinking about because it's scary and it's sad and it's hard. But if we don't take the time to do that, at least with just ourselves, it's going to be harder for us to put those feelings towards others when they might need that help, and to just have empathy for other people in general, I think. Yeah, that's just me. Shorter episode, not the most upbeat, fun episode, so sorry about that. You'll probably get a K-drama review for the next one, so if you like those, you're in luck. But this one is a little bit sadder, a little bit more serious. That is all I have for you today. I know, shorter episode, really rambly, but that's what it is. That's what I can do for today. So, thank you for tuning in and spending this time with me. I hope you have a lovely rest of your morning, evening, day, night. I feel like I did not do that in the right order. Week, weekend, weekday. I'm all over the place. Whatever it may be for you. And I hope to see you next time. Love, Mikaela. Bye.